Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Trump plans to meet Vladimir Putin. He says the Russian president is quite keen. The agenda will evidently be Ukraine, but will Ukraine get a seat at the table? Can Donald Trump end the war he promises to end on day one in office? And will Putin play ball? We'll discuss all of this. For now, the world's focus is on Trump's inauguration. Many world leaders are invited, including Chinese President Xi Jinping. He won't go. We'll tell you who will. India is preparing for its Republic Day celebrations, but there may be a problem with the chief guest. Reports say he may fly to Pakistan on the very same day. How many hours in a week should you work? A major debate is raging in India after a corporate boss pitched a 90-hour work week and working Sundays. In Los Angeles, the wildfires are still swallowing buildings as looters ransack abandoned homes. Why are restaurant owners taking Swiggy and Zomato to court over quick food delivery? Was tennis star Novak Djokovic poisoned in Australia? Why is Nigeria firing officials from its anti-corruption body? How technology and bird lovers are causing a whole industry to boom? And all about the Maha Kumbh, the biggest human congregation in the world, this time with drones and artificial intelligence. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Donald Trump sentenced to an unconditional discharge in the hush money case where he was convicted of trying to cover up payments made to an adult film star. This ruling allows the U.S. President-elect to avoid jail time, fines or probation. The judge cited Trump's return to the White House as the rationale for the sentencing. Israel's military strikes Houthi targets in Yemen, attacks a power station and ports on the western coast. The Israeli defense minister says the strikes are a message to the Iran-backed Houthis, promising to hunt them. In recent weeks, the Houthis have stepped up their missile attacks on Israel. A stampede at a landmark mosque in Damascus kills at least 3 people. The incident took place during a charity event in the mosque, where people were trying to get free meals. A large crowd had gathered in the mosque's courtyard, leading to the stampede. In Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro takes oath to begin his 3rd presidential term. His swearing-in was marred by protests over the disputed July election results. Venezuela closed its border with Colombia for this inauguration, citing international conspiracy. Maduro has been in power since 2013. France accuses Algeria of trying to humiliate them. As the crisis deepens between Paris and its former colonies, several Algerian influencers have been arrested in France for inciting violence. In November, the North African country arrested a French-Algerian novelist, angering Paris. Algeria won its independence from France in 1962. And Kenya's High Court moves to decriminalize attempted suicide, declares it unconstitutional to treat suicide attempts as a crime. Suicide is illegal in the East African country. Those who attempt it face a fine and up to 2 years in jail.
President Putin wants to meet. He's said that even publicly.
Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are planning to meet, which can only mean one thing. They want to end the war in Ukraine, or at least try to end it. Trump has promised to stop the fighting on day one in office, but for that, he needs Putin. Reports say both men had a phone conversation in mid-November. This was after Trump won the election, but neither side confirmed it. In fact, the Kremlin outright rejected those reports. This time, though, they are being open about it. Trump says Putin is keen to meet him. He says his team is making the arrangements. Listen to this.
President Putin wants to meet. He's said that even publicly. And we have to get that war over with. That's a bloody mess. Soldiers are being killed by the millions. I looked at some very graphic pictures yesterday. The soldiers that are being killed, you know, it's a flat field. The only thing that stops a bullet is a body.
And what is Moscow saying? Well, they too are keen on talks with Donald Trump, but only after his inauguration.
President Putin has repeatedly declared that he is open to contacts with international leaders, including the President of the United States of America, including Donald Trump. We see that Mr. Trump is also declaring his readiness to solve problems through dialogue. We welcome that. In all likelihood, there will already be some movements after Mr. Trump enters the Oval Office.
Putin and Trump have a good equation, as good as a US president and a Russian president can have. In 2018, they held a bilateral summit in Finland. They also met on the sidelines of multilateral summits like the G20 and the Asia-Pacific Forum. During the pandemic, Trump sent COVID tests to Putin, that too in secret. Reports say they kept in touch even after Trump left office. A recent book claims that they spoke 7 times after 2021. Again, neither side has confirmed any of this. We don't know when the next meeting could happen, but chances are it will happen on neutral turf. Trump and Putin met in Finland, which was neutral back then. And Biden met him in Switzerland, which is again neutral. As for the agenda, we don't have to speculate. It will be Ukraine all the way. Having said that, there are 3 things to watch out for. Number 1, will Zelensky get an invite for this meet? Ideally, he should. The talks will focus on a war in his country, so it's pointless without him at the table. That's the first point. Number 2, how will Europe react to this? Their big 2 have softened their position on Russia. In November, Chancellor Olaf Scholz spoke to Putin. It was their first conversation since the war began. And it came after Trump's win. In France, President Macron is asking Ukraine to be realistic, especially on issues of territory. We have to see how Europe responds to these talks because their support will be vital to peace. Zelensky has repeatedly sought security guarantees to end the war, and he wants the US to provide them. But Donald Trump is not about to send US soldiers to uphold a peace in Europe. So that job will fall on Europe. And finally, factor number 3, will Trump actually follow through on his campaign promise? In public, he has expressed sympathy with Putin. He says he understands why Russia invaded Ukraine.
You know, a big part of the problem was Russia for many, many years, long before Putin said you could never have NATO involved with Ukraine. Now, they've said that. That's been like written in stone. And somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that.
But we can't go by the rhetoric alone. Trump has appointed an envoy to settle this war. His name is Keith Kellogg. Now, Kellogg has explained his ideas in a paper. He says Ukraine should get aid only if they participate in talks. And what if Ukraine agrees but Russia does not? Well, then the aid should continue, at least according to him. So Trump's policy is not set in stone. He has a record of radically changing his position, and that is what Zelensky is counting on. Trump's unpredictability.
Трамп може бути вирішальним.
We had several conversations during meetings or telephone conversations. I think he is strong and unpredictable. I would like Trump's unpredictability to concern, first of all, Russia. I think he really wants to end the war. I think this is true.
It all hinges on that Putin-Trump meeting, on who has the upper hand when the talks begin. Ukraine is trying desperately. This week, they launched a new offensive in Kursk. Remember, Kursk is a region in western Russia. Ukraine occupied parts of it last year. They're hoping to use it as a bargaining chip. Kyiv is also escalating attacks in the east. Russia says they launched a missile attack on Donetsk. Take a look.
Начать экстренную запись.
Zelensky also attended a Western Arms Forum in Germany yesterday. It's called the Rammstein Group. This forum is led by the United States. It has been building up Ukraine's military-industrial complex. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin was also in attendance. He announced a new arms package for Kyiv. This one is worth $500 million. He also urged Trump to keep supporting Ukraine. On the way back, Zelensky stopped in Rome. He met Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and she is seen as a Trump whisperer in Europe. I guess Zelensky is trying everything in the playbook. Biden's endless checkbooks kept him in the game. But with Trump, he may not even be at the table. Putin is not the only world leader on Trump's calendar. He's going to have a packed schedule in the weeks ahead, starting with his inauguration in 10 days from now. Donald Trump has an elaborate guest list. At least 8 world leaders have been invited, and topping the list is Xi Jinping, the Chinese president. He was among the first world leaders who got an invite, but he is not going. Instead, Xi Jinping is sending one of his top representatives. Beijing has not named the man yet, and we say man because there are no high-ranking women in the Chinese government, so it's going to be a man. Let's tell you about the names doing the rounds. Han Zheng is one of them. He is one of China's vice presidents. In the past, he stood in for Xi Jinping, but mostly in ceremonial roles. Another probable is China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. He could be sent to the US. And Trump's advisors have their own preference. They want Kai Chi to attend. He's a very influential man. Kai Chi is known as Xi Jinping's right-hand man. The two have worked together for decades. Kai is a member of China's Politburo Standing Committee. That's the top decision-making body of China. He also serves as Xi Jinping's chief of staff. Kai accompanies Xi on most foreign trips. When Xi Jinping meets world leaders like Vladimir Putin, Kai is in the room. He's a close confidant of the Chinese president, and that is why Trump's advisors want him in Washington. These discussions also offer valuable insights. They show that Trump's team is actively engaging with China even before he formally takes office, which is quite different from Donald Trump's public stance on China. In public, he takes a hardline position. He talks tough on China. He's packed his administration with China hawks. He's also vowed to impose major tariffs. And recently, he opened a whole new front against China. Trump accused Beijing of controlling the Panama Canal.
You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it.
So a lot of anti-China rhetoric. At the same time, Trump has kept the door open for engagement. Last month, he said the US and China can solve problems together.
I have had, especially through letters, some very good conversations.
Have you had conversations with Venezuela?
You know, because China and the United States can together solve all of the problems of the world.
This week, Trump gave another statement. He said he will get along with Xi Jinping. Trump says he's already talking with Xi through intermediaries, and China has confirmed this.
China attaches great importance to the previous statements made by President-elect Trump. China and the United States have maintained communication through various means. China is willing to work with the United States to uphold the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, win-win cooperation.
But China still does not fully trust Donald Trump, else Xi Jinping would have made the trip perhaps. Of course, there are many others who won't miss the chance. Like I said, many world leaders have got the invite, including Argentina's president, Javier Milei. Reports say that he has accepted the invitation. Milei was among the first foreign leaders to meet Trump after he won the election, so he'll be making a second trip to the US in 2 months. Then we have the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. She, too, could return to the US. She met Trump at Mar-a-Lago only last weekend. The two leaders had dinner, and that is when Trump extended the invite to Meloni.
As far as the inauguration is concerned, I confirm the invitation. I confirm that I would like to be there. I am pleased to be there, and clearly I am evaluating it precisely on the compatibility of the agenda with the many things we have to do. But if I succeed, I will gladly participate.
So Meloni is trying to adjust her schedule to attend. Who else can we expect at the inauguration of Donald Trump? Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who, by the way, is currently holidaying in Kerala in India. Also, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, he too has got an invite. So many influential figures will be in attendance. This inauguration is shaping up to be a high-profile event. Reports say they've run out of invitations. Trump's team has stopped offering tickets to major donors. They don't have any room for more. Even seven-figure donors are on wait lists. So even money cannot guarantee you an invite. This is a stark contrast from 2016 when Trump's first inauguration drew thin crowds. This time, filling the space won't be an issue. India's Republic Day is coming up on the 26th of January. We commemorate the day we adopted our constitution. We celebrate our transition into a republic. Every year we have a grand Republic Day parade in India. It takes place in the capital, New Delhi. There's always a chief guest at the event, the leader of a friendly nation, who brings along a contingent of soldiers to join the parade. Obviously, this takes time and effort to arrange. It's not something that you can put together at the last minute. So the guest is always confirmed well in advance, and the public is usually informed ahead of time. But it's been rather quiet this year. The government of India has not officially announced the chief guest yet, even though it's almost certain to be the new president of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto. Last year's chief guest was French President Emmanuel Macron. His visit was confirmed in December. Before Macron, there was Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the president of Egypt. His visit was confirmed 2 months in advance, in November 2022. The Wuhan virus pandemic derailed the 2021 Republic Day parade, but before it struck, Brazil's then President Jair Bolsonaro was a chief guest in 2020. His visit was also confirmed by November the previous year. So why is the Indian government suddenly silent about Prabowo's visit? The answer may lie with India's noisy neighbor, Pakistan. Pakistani media reports suggest that Prabowo is headed there. He's planning a 3-day trip. He plans to go immediately after attending India's Republic Day parade on the 26th of January itself. This may be the reason for the Indian government's silence, because let's face it, it is not ideal. Prabowo has been invited to New Delhi as the chief guest on an important day. So for him to fly off to Pakistan right after that is awkward, to say the least. Perhaps Prabowo has not considered the optics, or maybe he did not get the memo on dehyphenation. Dehyphenation is a foreign policy initiative. India has keenly pursued this over the last 2 decades. Up until the early 2000s, foreign leaders would club visits to India and Pakistan, get both visits done in one go. Former US President George W. Bush did this in 2006. He came to India to sign the landmark India-US Civil Nuclear Agreement and then flew off to meet Pervez Musharraf in Pakistan. It wasn't a good look back then either. So India started making it clear that this was not appropriate. It wanted leaders to separate their trips, keep their relations with India and Pakistan separate, thus dehyphenate both the ties and the trips. Every American president since Bush has respected this. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, all of them came to India and all of them chose to skip Pakistan. And it's not just the Americans. Take the Saudi Crown Prince, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. He was in India for a visit back in 2019. He went to Pakistan that same month. But he took a detour. He did not fly there directly. Instead, he made a stopover in Dubai to respect India's stance. But maybe Prabowo is not aware that this is the official policy now, or maybe he doesn't consider it a big deal to visit India and Pakistan back to back. After all, his predecessor did the same thing, at the same time, by the way. Joko Widodo was among 10 chief guests at the 2018 Republic Day parade. That's when India called all the leaders of ASEAN nations. So Indonesian President Joko Widodo, the then president, was one of them, one of the 10 guests. And he flew straight to Pakistan after the visit. and then proceeded to hold bilaterals. Prabowo is now planning to do the same. But here is the issue. In 2018, Joko Widodo was one among 10 chief guests, so all eyes were not on him. His trip could be overlooked. Right now, in 2025, it's just Prabowo, so all eyes will be on him. So his Pakistan trip may come across as an affront to India. He probably does not mean it that way. After all, New Delhi and Jakarta share deep ties. Indonesia is India's largest trading partner in the ASEAN region. Trade was valued at almost $40 billion in 2023. They're working well on defense as well. Indonesia is interested in India's BrahMos missiles. Apart from trade, the two countries share cultural ties and a historic friendship. India's first Republic Day chief guest was Sukarno, the first president of Indonesia. This was back in 1950. Prabowo will be the fourth Indonesian president to be given this honor. The warm ties and mutual respect have always been there. So the India-Pakistan trip schedule is unlikely to be an insult by Prabowo, but it may be seen as one. So to avoid the hassle, he should rethink his decision. It's Friday. I'm sure everyone is already in weekend mode. You're looking forward to 2 days without work. But what if you had to work on Saturday, or worse, on Sunday? You would probably feel deflated and angry. But that's what the chairman of Larsen & Toubro is pitching. Now, Larsen & Toubro, L&T as it's called, is an Indian multinational. They work in heavy industries and construction. Their chairman is S.N. Subramanian. Let me quote from what he said. I regret I'm not able to make you work on Sundays. If I can make you work on Sundays, I will be more happy because I work on Sundays. What do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wife? How long can the wives stare at their husbands? Come on, get to the office and start working. And he did not stop there. He also advocated for 90-hour work weeks. Let me repeat that, 90 hours of work per week. To put that in context, the average in the US is 36 hours per week. In China, it is 48 hours. So needless to say, 90 hours is unfair and borderline impossible. You would have to work all 7 days. These comments have triggered major backlash online. Take a look. Actor Deepika Padukone has also joined in. She said it's shocking to see senior managers make such statements. She also added a hashtag to her comment, hashtag mental health matters. Badminton star Jwala Gutta also chimed in. She called the remarks misogynistic and scary. As the outrage grew, L&T released a clarification. They said the company is focusing on nation building and that the comments reflect a larger ambition. But let's be honest, they do not reflect a larger ambition, they reflect a larger problem. Because the L&T chairman is not the first to trigger this debate. Recently, Narayan Murthy did the same. He called for 6-day work weeks in India. These are titans of India's corporate sector. They have built companies and institutions. They have created millions of jobs. So how are they getting this wrong? Tonight, let's try to answer that question. The average age of an Indian CEO is 57 years. But as a country, we are much younger. The average Indian is just 28 years old. We are talking about a massive age gap here. This leads to different opinions and perceptions, different, not necessarily wrong. And corporate leaders need to realize that. They must reach out to younger workers, understand their concerns, and listen to their viewpoints. If not, such debates will never end. You cannot copy-paste your experiences to present times. That's a recipe for misunderstandings. Plus, we need to be rational about it. People work more when there is incentive to work more. In this case, who has more incentive? A CEO with stock options or an employee with no stake in the company? I think the answer is obvious. Founders and CEOs will naturally like to work harder because when the company succeeds, they become millionaires. And the employees? Maybe a promotion or a hike. In fact, we are seeing that in India right now. Corporate profits are at a 15-year high. They have increased 300% in the last 4 years. Yet salaries are stagnant. They have increased between 0.8 and 5.4%. If you account for inflation, it's actually negative. So what is the incentive for these workers? Their companies are making more money than ever, yet they are not benefiting. And finally, we need to end this obsession with time. More time does not mean more productivity. In fact, it means the opposite. Let me show you this study by a Stanford professor. He looked at workers in a munition factory. One set worked for 70 hours a week. The other worked for 53 hours. And guess what? The 70-hour group had 19% less output. And this is just one example. Most studies link more hours to less productivity, and the reasons are quite obvious. You get less sleep, you have less energy, and you don't have time to focus on your family, so you end up burnt out. Then why do companies persist with it? Well, no one has been able to answer that. Some say it's because corporations are inherently rigid. They do not like big changes or tweaks. Others say it's because time is easier to measure. Either way, companies and corporate leaders must realize the truth. More hours does not equal more output. And if they disagree, we have a question for them. You are set to undergo a dangerous, a serious operation. You have 2 doctors to choose from. One who works all 7 days a week, the other who works 5 days a week. Which one would you trust to operate on you? Now to Los Angeles, a city that is battling one of the largest wildfires in U.S. history. The flames remain uncontained. Close to 180,000 residents have been evacuated. As the fire engulfs more homes and buildings, at least 10 people have died, 10,000 buildings have been destroyed, and another 60,000 are at risk. More than 8,000 personnel have been deployed to fight the blaze. Local authorities are working tirelessly to bring it under control, but strong winds have made firefighting difficult. It could take days to fully extinguish the flames. The wildfires have triggered lawlessness too. There are growing reports of looted homes as more people abandon their homes to save their lives. Here's a report.
Los Angeles is burning. It's a scale of devastation the city has never seen before. At least 10 people have died. The fires have spread across 35,000 acres. 10,000 buildings have been destroyed. Another 60,000 are at risk. The damages are worth well over $100 billion. This is the costliest wildfire in US history.
Based on the devastation that is clear, it looks like a bomb, an atomic bomb dropped in these areas.
Videos like these paint a grim picture. Multiple wildfires are burning across Los Angeles now. None of them are anywhere close to being contained. The skies are buzzing with aircraft dropping retardants and water on the flames, but these efforts are making little impact. For the victims of this fire, these losses are personal and real. Los Angeles is home to Hollywood. The wildfire is even threatening the city's iconic Hollywood sign. Many A-list celebrities have lost their homes. This includes names like Mel Gibson, Adam Brody and Paris Hilton, who shared a video of her charred home in Malibu. These fires have been raging for 3 days now. Thousands of firefighters still remain overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the blaze. It's being made worse by strong winds and the lack of rain. Looters are now taking advantage of the chaos. They are raiding empty homes and shops which have been abandoned. At least 20 arrests have been made so far.
If anybody is involved in looting or any property damage, that he is ready to prosecute to the full extent of the law.
There are now 8,000 personnel on the ground trying to stop these raging wildfires and maintain order. Yet the crisis remains beyond control. California Governor Gavin Newsom has now called in troops from the National Guard. This is a military reserve force, and they have been asked to put an end to the looting. Misinformation is also spreading as fast as the wildfire. This video is doing the rounds. It shows a group of men taking goods from a home. On social media, users have claimed this is footage of looters in Los Angeles. But that's incorrect. Turns out this is an old video, and it's not from Los Angeles, but from Compton. And these men are not looting this home, they were helping the homeowner move. The crisis in Los Angeles shows how extreme weather events are intensifying. And this exposes just how unprepared our communities, our governments and public spaces are to deal with it.
We live in a world where convenience is currency, where speed reigns supreme and where accessibility is everything. And that explains the success of quick commerce, or QCom. In India, it has revolutionized the way we shop. And now these companies want to take it a step further. Imagine a piping hot meal delivered to your doorstep, and that too in just 15 minutes. QCom companies are offering quick meals. They're introducing their private food labels. Zepto has Zepto Cafe, Blinkit has Bistro, and Swiggy is coming up with Snack. And how does it work? These platforms source ingredients and ready-to-eat food from vendors. Then they cook or heat it up in their dark stores. These are mini kitchens designed for maximum efficiency. Again, the focus here is on speed. Zepto claims it takes them less than 2 minutes to cook anything on the menu, less than 2 minutes to cook it. And that is what allows them to deliver the food in 15 minutes. Of course, the menu is limited, but the ease of it makes it quite appealing. Imagine craving a sandwich and getting it in 10 minutes, the same time you may take to make it yourself. That is the market they're targeting. Busy individuals who value ease over everything else. But not everyone's thrilled about this innovation. India's restaurant industry is sounding an alarm. I'm talking about the NRAI, the National Restaurant Association of India, NRAI. They're gearing up to sue Swiggy and Zomato. They want to drag these companies to court. On what grounds? Unfair trade practices.
Now, see, these guys have their entire data, right? Nothing stops them, and they don't share the data with us, right? So they exactly know who our customers are, and for us, there's consumer masking, which I believe is absolutely unfair. But not getting there. But what they can easily do is that they can migrate our traffic to their app and sell similar products, which I believe is absolutely unfair. I think private labeling, them getting into private labeling is getting into the food business, right? Aggregators are supposed to facilitate the food business by, ensuring food delivery. But them getting into the food business, I think it's complete abuse of power.
Restaurant owners say Swiggy and Zomato have their data, their customer data, because customers order food from restaurants through Swiggy and Zomato, so they have that data. And now they're using it to develop their own products and then promote them aggressively. The NRAI, the Restaurants Association, believes that this will hurt traditional restaurants. Their businesses will be affected. Blinkit has responded to these concerns. Blinkit is owned by Zomato. It says Zomato won't launch private brands on its app. Their new platform, Bistro, will be completely independent, that it will not use data from Zomato. At least that's what they're promising. But this is not the first time that these platforms are facing backlash. In 2022, they were accused of violating India's competition laws, again by the same Restaurant Owners Association. The allegations included imposing pricing restrictions, capping discounts, and even threatening to lower rankings for restaurants, especially those that did not play by these rules. At the heart of this battle is one major concern: monopoly. Take Swiggy, for example. As of 2024, Swiggy had around 196,000 restaurant partners. 196,000 restaurants were on Swiggy across 653 Indian cities. So restaurants rely heavily on these platforms. They can reach new customers. They can attract more business. 1/3 of a restaurant's revenue is generated on Swiggy and Zomato. That is the average. In return, most of them pay heavy commission fees, anywhere between 15 to 25%. Let me put it in simpler words. Say a restaurant earns 1 lakh rupees from food deliveries, then 15 to 25,000 rupees of this goes to platforms, Swiggy and Zomato. So they're already taking a considerable chunk. And now restaurants may have to compete with these very platforms. Remember, this debate is not just about profits or competition, it's also about the future of India's food industry. Yes, quick commerce is great, but the flip side is the pressure that it puts on traditional businesses, like your small family-run restaurants. They simply cannot match the scale or speed. The Restaurant Association argues that this creates a fundamentally uneven playing field that leaves restaurants with limited choices and owners battling with shrinking margins. And by the way, it's not just restaurants who are at the receiving end in this game. Across the board, QCOM platforms promote their homegrown brands. They push them on their websites. So it's the first thing that you see when you search for an item. And they offer discounts too. Amazon, for instance, often uses such aggressive tactics to make sure that customers buy Amazon's own private label products. Same with Grofers and Big Basket. Everyone is pushing their own labels. For the customer, it may feel like the ultimate win, a hot meal in just 10 to 15 minutes, or even cheaper products. But will this innovation push out the smaller players, or will it force industries to adapt and evolve? Either way, one thing is certain, the battle between convenience and fairness is far from over. As India's food delivery giants push the boundaries of what is possible, this could be a defining moment for the future of food commerce. For our next story, let's go back in time. The year was 2022. The Wuhan virus was spreading across the globe. The world was under lockdown and vaccinations were compulsory. At this time, an unvaccinated Novak Djokovic landed in Australia. He was going to compete in the Australian Open, but the tennis star was instead detained and finally deported. This incident sparked a lot of media frenzy, and now Djokovic has made a new claim. The former world number one believes that he was poisoned in detention. Why did he say so? Our next report tells you.
This wasn't the usual battle on the court. This was Novak Djokovic against a different opponent, the food he was served in detention. The 24-time Grand Slam winner claims he was poisoned. The story began in 2022. The COVID-19 pandemic was very much still a reality. The world was under lockdown. Vaccines were the name of the game. But Djokovic chose to remain unvaccinated. He landed in Melbourne, ready to compete in the Australian Open. But the tennis star was stopped at the airport. Australia at that time had strict rules. Any unvaccinated person could not enter the country. If they did, they needed a medical exemption. Djokovic had none. So the tennis star was held in detention. Djokovic appealed to the courts, and during this time he was kept at a park hotel in Melbourne. The hotel had long been a symbol of despair for asylum seekers. There are reports of deteriorating conditions, even that of maggot-infested meals. But Djokovic believes his diet wasn't just subpar, it was a weapon.
I realized that in that hotel in Melbourne, I was fed with some food that poisoned me. I had some discoveries when I came back to Serbia. I never told this to anybody publicly, but discoveries that I had a really high level of heavy metal. Heavy metal. I had the lead, very high level of lead and mercury.
This is what Djokovic revealed in an interview. The Serbian player has a very strict diet. It's reportedly a strict gluten and dairy-free diet. Djokovic said tests dictated a high level of heavy metal in his body, which was strange. So he believes he was poisoned. Now, the Australian Border Force hasn't responded to this, neither has the government. Djokovic was asked about this today as he's in Melbourne again for the Australian Open. He says he just wants to focus on tennis.
Do you have any evidence linking your high heavy metal blood levels to the food you were served in hotel detention 3 years ago?
Look, the GQ article came out online yesterday, and I think it's a February issue, so it's coming out in print version. I've done that interview many months ago, so I would appreciate not talking more in detail about that, as I would like to focus on the tennis and why I'm here. If you want to see what I've said and get more info on that, you can always revert to the article.
Of course, focus is important. After all, Djokovic is aiming for his 11th Australian Open win. But that doesn't change the fact that he's controversy's favourite child. In the 2020 US Open, he hit a ball that struck a line judge and he got disqualified. He didn't wear a mask at the 2021 Australia Open. During a dramatic Wimbledon final, Djokovic was fined $8,000. This was for smashing his racket. And he refused to take COVID-19 vaccines, claiming he was not anti-vax but pro-freedom. Which brings us to this episode in Melbourne. Australia refuses to speak about it. Djokovic is reluctant to expand on the issue, and all of that is just fueling the fire. As the race for the title begins in Australia, the world is interested in just one thing: what truly happened off the court in 2022.
Our next story is about corruption. This is a global problem. It plagues a number of countries, but some more than others. Among those at the top of the list is Nigeria. Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation. It used to be Africa's biggest economy as well, but it has now slipped to fourth place. This slide is often linked to President Bola Tinubu, his economic policies and his reputation for corruption. Tinubu recently featured on a list, the list of the most corrupt leaders in the world. The winner was former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. He was followed by Kenya's William Ruto. But Tinubu made the top 5. Now, I must clarify here that these rankings were sourced from the public. There wasn't a scientific formula involved. It was about public perception. And Tinubu is perceived to be extremely corrupt. So is his government. There are a number of reasons for this. Let me show you some of the latest examples, starting with the government. Nigeria has an anti-corruption agency. It is called the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. This is Nigeria's watchdog. Its job is to tackle corruption, and technically they are doing that, but at home. Let's show you today's major headline. The EFCC has detained 10 of its own over some missing items. This statement was put out by the agency. You'll notice that they said some operational items could not be accounted for. Okay, that sounds like some missing equipment. But then the Nigerian press dug a little deeper, and it turns out that the operational items were jewelry and cash worth $350,000 to $400,000. What operations were they pulling off with all that jewelry? 10 EFCC officers were detained in Lagos. They are apparently answering questions. That is all that the commission has revealed. They haven't told the public who the corrupt officers are. I know it's innocent until proven guilty, but the very same commission usually does not follow this. They happily share the names of under trials, but suddenly the agency is shy about revealing the names of its own officers. And this has been quite a bad week for them. They were forced to make another announcement on Monday, telling the people that 27 other officers had been dismissed for fraudulent activities and misconduct. This is not a great look for Nigeria's anti-graft watchdog, and definitely not a good look for the Tinubu government. Bola Tinubu is 72 years old. He's been around for a while. He's a seasoned politician. So as you would expect, he has been linked to a number of scandals over the decades. One of the worst involved drug dealing. Tinubu allegedly held money from drug trafficking in his accounts. This was according to the US Justice Department. Tinubu, of course, never accepted the charges, but he did pay out a settlement worth $460,000. Now, these charges are old. No final verdict was reached. So let's put them aside for now. After all, people can supposedly change. So what has Tinubu been up to recently since he became president? Well, he was caught up in a fake diploma scandal for a while. There were allegedly some errors in his college certificate. Okay, mistakes happen, moving on. Then there was a major scandal involving a highway. Tinubu issued a $13 billion government contract to a company co-owned by his son. Tinubu is quite the caring father, apparently, but alas, most people do not see it that way. That is why he made it to the top 5 in the Corrupt Person of the Year award. The perception is quite prevalent, and reports say that he is quite vexed. He's even hired American lobbyists to clean up his image. He's reportedly paying them $2.7 million, though I wonder, is he paying from his own pocket or Nigeria's treasury? I suppose we'll find out eventually. A reality show has gripped New Zealand. It is a 24-hour bird-watching live stream with 2 majestic albatrosses as protagonists. They have millions of ardent fans, and this is not an isolated case. Birding is booming the world over. People are tuning in to birding live streams. They're tracking bird migration on apps and identifying them on public platforms. AI has joined the club too. Now there are smart goggles to identify birds just by looking at them, apps to identify them by listening to their calls, and AI bird houses to feed them. Birding is a $15 billion industry, and experts say it is a rare force of good, both for the birds and for the economy. Here's a report.
Do you like reality shows but are tired of all the breakups, the yelling and the surgical makeovers? Well, New Zealand has a suggestion for you. How about a low-drama 24-hour reality show with no socialites? Instead, 2 hopefuls who have most likely mated for life and await their child's birth. That's quite a positive plotline, isn't it? Well, this could be why millions of people have tuned in to watch a live stream about the bird's breeding season on New Zealand's South Island. The live stream started in 2016. It showcased these majestic birds, the northern royal albatrosses, as a way to raise awareness about the vulnerable species. There are 17,000 of these birds the world over. 1% of them are in New Zealand, and they are threatened by plastic pollution and warming seas. New Zealand's Department of Conservation wanted to boost their conservation measures, so they launched the live stream following the lives of the albatrosses. Then came the pandemic, and the stream's popularity exploded. But this isn't an isolated case. When people all over the world were forced to stay home, they didn't have to travel long distances to spot birds. They tuned into bird-watching live streams, and this led to the birding boom. And years later, it has not slowed down. Today, more than 45 million people regularly birdwatch. Devoted fans are tracking bird locations on apps, on public bird listing platforms, and many of them are being inspired to get out to birdwatch in real life. Like in 2023, when a 70-year-old birder did something that had never been done before. He managed to see more than 10,000 different bird species in the wild. This record was previously unthinkable. But now it's possible thanks to new technology. Today, birding is a $15 billion industry, and like any other booming industry, AI is making a move here. There are AI-powered binoculars that will identify birds for you. And sometimes you don't even have to see a bird to identify it. There are apps which will record a bird's call and identify it. AI tools can track bird migrations by relying on weather radars. There are remote sensing technologies which can monitor birds in locations you may not be able to reach. And even AI birdhouses. These are tech-powered bird feeders for the wild birds on your porch, and they will record videos of the birds for you to see. Sure, it can get a little voyeuristic and obsessive, but experts say this industry is a rare force of good. It has helped identify new species, track their movement, monitor their health, and improve conservation efforts. It has helped funnel money into rural communities, which the environmental movement has struggled to do. It's also boosting tourism, like in Ecuador, which is home to 1,600 different bird species. That's almost twice as the whole of Europe. Here, birding tourism is growing rapidly, so much so that farmers are increasingly transitioning their land from agriculture to bird reserves. Or look at Colombia, where bird watching has increased more than 27-fold since 2010. So the benefit is not just for the birds, but for the economy as well, and for the bird watchers. Study after study shows that birding is good for you and has health benefits. So if you haven't yet, let birding take flight in your life. It could help you, the birds, and the planet.
Every 12 years, a temporary city is conjured on the banks of the river Ganga in Prayagraj, in India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh. It is complete with roads, pontoon bridges, toilets, and temporary housing. This year, the city is taking shape again. Millions of visitors are settling into their tents. The air is thick with devotion and excitement, and Prayagraj is all set for the Maha Kumbh. This is a Hindu pilgrimage. It will begin on January 13th, then go on for 45 days. During this period, people will bathe in the sacred Ganga and Yamuna rivers. This is unlike any other pilgrimage. It is held every 12 years and it is a mega event. Maha Kumbh is the world's largest gathering of people. This year, more than 400 million visitors are expected to attend. This is roughly 3 times the population of Russia, 400 million. This is more than thrice the visitors compared to the last Maha Kumbh, which was held in 2013. So this is a record-breaking projection. But it's not surprising. If you had $1 for every time a movie showed a child getting lost at a Kumbh Mela, you'd have enough money to make a film yourself. Because that is the reputation. Crowds, stampedes, separation. Honestly, the Kumbh has not helped its case either. Over the years, it has witnessed a fire, a bridge collapse, and multiple stampedes. Hundreds of people have died, thousands have been injured, and many more have gotten lost. As per 2001 figures, 4,000 to 6,000 pilgrims lost their relatives every single day in the Kumbh crowds. So you get the stereotype. But this was decades ago. Most of this Kumbh chaos lives in the past. The Maha Kumbh of today is a formidable beast. It is a study in crowd management, in logistics, in waste management, and that's exactly what 24 prominent institutes want to do. Researchers from Harvard and Stanford are on the ground and they want to study this year's mega affair. It has undergone a major makeover. This year, more than 7,000 crore rupees have been allocated to the Kumbh. That's about $813 million, and it has given the Maha Kumbh a facelift. The security has upped its game. It has gone digital. AI-enabled cameras and drones will surveil the area. They will detect barricade jumping and estimate crowd density. There are AI face recognition systems at security checks. There is a real-time Google Chat feature for visitors. Plus, underwater drones will be deployed. They will provide surveillance beneath the waters, ensuring safety during the holy bath. Apart from this, infrastructure has been upgraded. Authorities have earmarked $185 million for waste management alone. More than 150,000 toilets have been set up. There is an AI-driven parking system. Pilgrims can pre-book their parking spots. AI will predict parking patterns. Plus, there are EV charging stations, vehicle maintenance stalls, and special transportation has been allocated. We are talking about thousands of buses, trains, and helicopters. They aim to ensure seamless commute. These are all remarkable upgrades for any convention, let alone a spiritual or religious one. But what's the point? A sense of duty and respect? Yes. A need for security? Yes. But why make the affair bigger than it already was? Because the Maha Kumbh is big money. It is like any other big-ticket event. It is a hub of economic activity. It creates jobs. It generates huge revenue. In 2013, it generated 12,000 crore rupees. That was the last Maha Kumbh. Every 6 years, a half Kumbh is also held. The last one was held in 2019. Back then, it generated 1.2 lakh crore rupees. This year, the Maha Kumbh is expected to raise 2 lakh crore rupees. That is $23 billion. Think about it. The daily items used like water bottles, they alone will generate more than 17,000 crore rupees, or about $2 billion. Think about the flowers. That's another 800 crore rupees, or $92 million. And these are just the little things. Look at the hotels, the luxury domes on the riverbank, the transportation, And you will see this. The Maha Kumbh is a money spinner. It has immense potential economically and culturally. So will this high-tech makeover pay off? We'll find out in a few days. Yesterday was former US President Jimmy Carter's funeral. It was supposed to be a somber occasion, but all anyone could talk about was a presidential club. All the living ex-presidents and vice presidents were in attendance, and all of them sat together. Just think about the animosity there. Some of it was quite evident. Mike Pence's wife refused to shake hands with Donald Trump. George Bush also ignored Trump. Jill Biden gave the cold shoulder to Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, Trump and Obama were joking. Obama, who called Trump childish and weird, Trump, who called Obama a jerk. It was almost like a high school drama. Take a look.
What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other, and we probably do. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Missiles strike a supermarket in Russian-controlled Donetsk. A cold snap brings heavy snowfall to western and northern Japan, and cleanup continues on the Black Sea coast after the oil tanker spill. Finally, taking you back in history, on this day in 1946, the first meeting of the United Nations General Assembly began in London. Delegates representing 51 nations attended the session. The scope and purpose of the UN was decided in this meeting. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend.
Начать экстренную запись.